Okay, so these 18 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita are divided into 3 sections, or rather, the Bhagavad Gita is divided into 3 sections: the first 6 chapters, the middle 6 chapters, and the last 6 chapters. Basically, all 18 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita deal with bhakti. Okay, but the middle 6 chapters deal exclusively with bhakti, while the first 6 chapters speak about how karma can lead to bhakti. And the last 6 chapters deal about how jnana can lead to bhakti. So that's why the first 6 are titled as Karma Yoga, the middle 6 as Bhakti Yoga, and the last 6 as Jnana Yoga. So out of Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga, obviously the most important is Bhakti. Krishna, many times he says in the Bhagavad Gita that if you want to know me, if you want to come to me, then it has to be only through Bhakti. And that's why Bhakti is the most important section, and it is in the center of the book. Now, okay, before we proceed, we need 3 volunteers. One person who can read the Sanskrit shlokas. Okay, Devina, you can read the Sanskrit shlokas word by word, and we will repeat. Okay, and we need 1 volunteer to read the translations, and 1 volunteer to read any text that is not a part of the translations. So, any volunteers for the last 2 options?
I don't mind reading the translations.
Okay, Anjali can read the translations. And now for the other text. Any volunteers?
And I can volunteer for the remaining text. Krishna.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Krishna Kumar. Fine. So let's read as to why the Bhakti Yoga section is in the middle. Let's read.
Okay, but I think the slide still shows okay. Acharyas gave us the following reason why Bhakti Yoga is in the middle of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. First, Bhakti is rahasya, very secret. Bhakti is essence of all scriptures. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, verse 10. Karma and Jnana Yoga are dead without Bhakti. Hence, surrounded by both, Bhakti gives life to Karma and Jnana Yoga. Third, generally, we do not disclose anything that's a secret until we became intimate. Hence, out of respect, Bhakti is placed in the middle. Fourth, most important is kept in the middle. Example, king traveling with his army is always in the middle, protected.
So usually when we have something that's very, very precious, we keep it in the middle of other things so that it can be protected from all sides, isn't it? So that's why we have Bhakti Yoga in the center so that it can be protected. Another reason that the Acharyas explain is Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga alone in the standalone mode have no value to it. There is no meaning to Jnana and Karma if there is no Bhakti. So because Bhakti is in the center, it is touching upon Karma and it is also touching upon Jnana. And that's how there is some meaning added to Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. So anyway, of course, we are going to begin from chapter 1, and we will see that includes that marks the beginning of the Karma Yoga section of the Bhagavad Gita.
I don't seem to have anything on my screen. Is it for any particular reason?
Oh, because I am screen sharing here. What about the others? Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
So I have to do something here.
Okay, maybe you can log out and log in again, maybe.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay. So we'll wait for a minute.
Yeah, just a minute.
Can you see now?
Yes.
Yeah, I have it now. Thank you.
Okay. So chapter 1 of the Bhagavad Gita is titled Observing the Armies on the Battlefield of Kurukshetra, and it has a total of 46 verses. And it is divided into 4 sections. Section 1, Preparations for War. section 2, signs of victory. We will see how already, even before the war has started, there are already some things that are signaling the victory of the Pandavas. So that we'll see from 12 to 20. And 21 to 25, we'll see Krishna's role as a Bhakta Vatsala. Bhakta Vatsala means the devotees are very dear to Lord Krishna. Then verses 26 to 46, we'll see Krishna giving his reasons as to why he should not fight. He gives a total of 5 reasons as to why he should not fight the war. So we'll see them as we proceed. But before that, it's time for us to listen to a story. Okay, so the story goes,
Sorry, can you repeat what is Bhakta Vatsala?
Krishna as Bhakta Vatsala means the devotees are very dear to Lord Krishna. Or Lord Krishna loves his devotees. That is called as Bhakta Vatsala.
So
The
Bhakta
word
means devotee, right? And Vatsala means
dear.
dear. Okay, thank you.
What does the word Vats mean?
Son, actually, I think.
Yeah.
Son. Okay, any other answers? What does the word Vats mean? Vatsala is a combination of 2 words, Vatsa and La. So La means,
Not
what does
sure.
La mean?
It's like dear,
Dear to heart.
dear to heart or something.
Yes, dear. Okay, but Vatsa literal meaning I want. La
Heart.
means to bring, Vats literal meaning is not heart. Vats literal meaning is? It's chest. Okay. So when something is very dear to us, we bring it, we bring it very close to our chest. You know, it's natural. When we love something, even if a child has a stuffed toy and he loves it, he will immediately take it to the chest. So anything that's very dear to us, we take it to our chest. So Bhakta Vatsala means Krishna keeps his devotees are very dear to him. So basically Vatsala means very dear. Yeah, but I'm just trying to explain the meaning when you split it up. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome. Okay, before that, it's time for a story. So this is a conversation between Lord Vishnu and his wife Lakshmi. Lord Vishnu is speaking and he says, "My dear Lakshmi, once upon a time there was a Brahmin called Susharma. Although he was born in a Brahmin family, he was a very wicked and sinful man. He never acquired any Vedic knowledge. He never chanted the holy name. He never gave anything in charity. He never received any guests in his house. And neither did he ever perform any kind of pious activities. And he used to earn his livelihood by selling some leaves in the market. And once he went to a sage's ashram and he collected some leaves to sell in the market when he was bitten by a snake and he died on the spot. Now, because he was a sinful man, after death, he was taken to the abode of Yamaraj, and there he was cast into many hells, where he suffered for a very long time. And after that, he attained the body of a bull. Now, even in the body of a bull, he did not have a very easy life because he was he had a very wicked man as his owner. This bull had a very wicked man as his owner, and he would place very heavy weights on the bull's back and used to make the bull transport the items. And once he laden the bull with such heavy goods that the bull was not able to move forward. And this owner was forcing the bull to move forward. And eventually the bull collapsed out of complete exhaustion and he fainted. Seeing the bull faint, some people gathered around the bull. They took pity on the bull and they dedicated to the bull a part of their pious deeds. And one of those people there was a prostitute. The prostitute also arrived at the scene. And she also said that if I have any pious credits, then I would like to dedicate a part of my pious credits for the benefit of the bull. After this, the bull died and then he went to the abode of Yamaraj. Now, Yamaraj tells this soul now that you have been liberated from all your past sinful activities because of the pious credits of the prostitute in particular. So now all his past sinful activities have been wiped out, and he takes his next birth. Now his next birth is a very auspicious birth because he takes birth in a very high Brahmin family where he's practicing all Brahmanical practices. But in that body of a Brahmin, he was able to remember his past lifetimes. So therefore, he had this curiosity that he wants to go and meet that prostitute and find out what is it that has helped him to completely wiped out his past sinful activities. So he goes in search of the prostitute and he finds her. He goes and meets her and he introduces himself to her. And then he asks her, what pious deeds that have you done whose credits have liberated me from all my past sinful activities? So the prostitute says, actually, I have a parrot in the cage, and that parrot every day recites something. I don't even understand what the parrot is reciting, but just by hearing that parrot recite, whatever the parrot is reciting, my heart has become completely pure. And I dedicated the result of that activity, that hearing from the parrot, to you, to that bull. And then this Brahman now, along with the prostitute, they go to the parrot and they ask the parrot, what is it that you are reciting? And the parrot begins to speak. Now the parrot now begins to recite its own past life. And the parrot says that in my past life, I was a very, very advanced and learned Brahman, but I was very proud of my knowledge. And out of my pride, I used to insult the other sages, other Brahmins. And because of that pride and jealousy that he had, when he died, he was cast into many hells. And after that, he had attained the body of this parrot. And this parrot also is not having a very smooth life because of its past sinful activities. This parrot lost its parents. So the mother parrot and the father parrot, they died when this parrot was still only a small baby. So this small baby parrot is completely helpless and is lying on hot sands. There is nobody to help the parrot. When some sages are passing by and they see this parrot, they take pity on this baby parrot and they take the baby parrot to their ashram. In that ashram, they keep this parrot in a cage. And in that ashram, the children of those sages are learning Vedic texts. And every day they are reciting some shlokas as a part of their learning. And this parrot is hearing those children reciting those shlokas, and the parrot also learns. By hearing those children, the parrot has also learned those shlokas. But after some time, a thief arrives and he steals this parrot and he sells the parrot to this prostitute of our story. Okay, and the parrot starts to recite what it has heard from those children in the ashram, and by hearing that, the prostitute has become purified. Now, when our central character of the story, Susharma, he hears all this, he goes to his house and he also begins to recite the same shlokas that he heard from the parrot. And very soon, Susharma, he returns to the supreme destination, Vaikuntha, at the end of that particular lifetime. So now I have a question. What do you think the parrot was reciting? What shlokas? Yes, Devina.
The chapter 1.
Yes, exactly. Yes, chapter 1. He was reciting the shlokas from chapter 1 of the Bhagavad Gita. This is the reason why we are doing this story. As I mentioned in the first class, there is a book called Gita Mahatmya. This Gita Mahatmya is from the Padma Purana. We have 18 Puranas. So one of them is Padma Purana. And Gita Mahatmya is a part of the Padma Purana. And each chapter of the Gita Mahatmya glorifies the corresponding chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So chapter 1 of Gita Mahatmya glorifies chapter 1 of the Bhagavad Gita. Like that, we have 18 stories that is spoken by none other than Lord Shiva himself to Parvati. Of course, now the story that I said is a conversation between Lord Vishnu to Lakshmi. So Lord Shiva narrates to Parvati a conversation that has happened between Lord Vishnu and Lakshmi. So it's a conversation within a conversation. Let's read this text.
Parvati said, "My dear husband, you know all the transcendental truths, and by your mercy I have heard the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. O Lord, How now I long to hear from you the glories of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, which was spoken by Lord Krishna, and by hearing which one's devotion to Lord Krishna increases. Lord Vishnu said, "My dear Lakshmi, the working of my multifold energies and how to become free from the bonds of birth and death and attain my eternal nature can only be understood by one of pure intelligence, who has an inclination to render service unto me. This transcendent knowledge is fully explained in the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. I myself have manifested in the form of Bhagavad Gita. This Bhagavad Gita is the destroyer of all sins, and that intelligent man who daily recites one chapter or even one shloka, one half shloka, or at least one quarter shloka, will attain the same position as Susharma had attained. Anyone who recites, who hears, or studies the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita will very easily cross over the ocean of material miseries and attain the service of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna."
So this is not the entire chapter, of course. I have only put excerpts here. But if you want to read the entire chapter, you can go online, search for Google, or I will send the link in the group. Okay. So the first paragraph, you can see Parvati is inquiring from her husband, Lord Shiva, about the glories of Bhagavad Gita. And then Lord Shiva talks about how this was spoken by Lord Vishnu to Goddess Lakshmi. And then Vishnu is telling Lakshmi that I myself have manifested in the form of Bhagavad Gita. So the Bhagavad Gita is not different from the Lord himself. And what does he say? He says that if you recite one chapter, not even one chapter, just one shloka, not even one shloka, one half shloka, not even one half shloka, just 1/4 of a shloka, then that person can attain the same position as Susharma. And then he begins to narrate the story of Susharma, which I just said. And finally, he concludes the chapter by saying this: anyone who recites or hears or studies the first chapter will easily cross over the ocean of material miseries and attain the service of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. So this is the Falashruti, we say. Falashruti, or the benefit of reciting or hearing or learning the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita as it is. Okay. So do we know who was Shankaracharya?
Adi Shankar.
Yeah, he was instrumental in setting up the four pithas, Jnana pithas, which Hindus.
Okay. Okay. And what was his philosophy? He preached what kind of philosophy?
Sanatana.
Advaita?
Okay. Actually, Shankaracharya was the chief exponent of the impersonalist philosophy. Spiritually, there are always two divisions, no? Personalist and impersonalist. The personalists believe that God is a person, and the impersonalists believe that God is not a person, God is a light or an energy. Okay, so there are two philosophies, personalist and impersonalist, and Adi Shankaracharya was a chief exponent of the impersonalist philosophy. He was their founder Acharya. Of course, who was Shankaracharya? Shankaracharya was none other than Lord Shiva himself. Yes, and he told Parvati, it is recorded where he told Parvati that I am going to descend on the planet and I am going to preach Mayavadam Asat Shastram. He said Mayavadam Asat Shastram. Why? Because he wants to keep the atheists away from devotional life. So that was the service of Lord Shiva. Okay, but even though Shankaracharya preached the impersonalist philosophy, even he in his final composition, Bhaja Govindam, it's very famous composition of Shankaracharya, even he in his Bhaja Govindam has said that if you can study the Bhagavad Gita even a little bit, and then see, let's the verse. Bhagavad Gita kinchada dita. Kinchada, just a little bit. Bhagavad Gita kinchada dita. Ganga Jalalava Kanika Pita, just a little bit, just one drop of Ganga, if you put it on your tongue. Ganga Jala Lava Kanika Pita. If you drink one drop of Ganges, you have it on the tongue. And what else? Shakrat Tapi Yena Murari Samarcha. If you can worship at least a little bit, at least once, Lord Murari, then what does he say? Then kriyate tasya yamena na charcha. Yamena means Yamaraj. Na charcha. You will not have any kind of a conversation or a discussion with Yamaraj. So this is the glory of the Bhagavad Gita. And he says that you should worship Murari a little bit. Who is Murari?
The one with the flute.
Lord Krishna.
Lord Krishna, yes. Murari means one with the flute, or it can also have one more meaning. Another meaning? What can that name Murari mean? Krishna killed a demon called Mura, and that's why he is called as Murari. Okay, so this is one of Krishna's many names. So this was a statement by Shankaracharya, and Bhaja Govindam, of course, was his last composition. It's a very famous composition. And this is one of the verses. Okay. So we'll see section 1 today, verses 1 to 11, preparations for the war. So before we chant Sanskrit verses, we have to recite at least thrice. So please repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Namo
Bhagavate
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Okay, Sanskrit. Dhritarashtra. Please repeat after Devina.
Vacha. Dharma Kshetra.
Kshetre.
Kurukshetra.
Samaveta.
Samaveta. Yuyutsava.
Mamakaha.
Namakaha.
Pandavas.
Shaiva.
Kim.
Kim.
Akurvata.
Purvata.
Sanjaya.
Translation?
Dhritarashtra Uva, King Dhritarashtra said, Dharma Kshetra in the place of pilgrimage, Kurukshetra in the place named Kurukshetra, Samaveta assembled, Yuyutsava desiring to fight, Mamakaha, my party sons, Pandavas, the son of Pandu, Ka and Eva, certainly, Kim, what, Akurvata, did they do? Sanjaya, O Sanjay. Translations. Dhritarashtra said, O Sanjaya, after my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled in the place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, desiring to fight, what did they do?
So the opening lines of the Gita are Dhritarashtra Uvacha. If somebody asks you, okay, as students of the Bhagavad Gita, what are the opening lines of the Bhagavad Gita? We should know that the Gita opens with the lines Dhritarashtra Uvacha. As we discussed previously, Dhritarashtra speaks only one verse in the entire Gita, and that is the first verse. So this is the only verse that Dhritarashtra speaks. And the word Uvacha, you see the Sanskrit word Uvacha means said. Okay, so Dhritarashtra Uvacha means Dhritarashtra said. If we want to know who is the speaker of the verse, we have to see who that Uvacha. So who has said it? Dhritarashtra spoke. Okay. So now what has Dhritarashtra inquiring? He is inquiring from Sanjaya, and he's saying that after my sons and the sons of Pandu have assembled there, what did they do? Now this verse reveals two aspects. One is he is referring to Kurukshetra as Dharmakshetre. So Dharmakshetra means it is a place of pilgrimage. So Prabhupada explains in the purport that this Kurukshetra actually was a place of pilgrimage. It was so auspicious. That place is so auspicious that even the demigods used to worship that place. Okay, that place was worshipped by the sages and also by the demigods. So in that such a holy place in Kurukshetra, then what does he say? Mamaka Pandavas Chaiva. Mamaka means what did my sons do? Pandavas means what did the sons of Pandu do? See, Vedic system is we don't differentiate between our children and the son and the children of our brothers. We consider our brothers' children also to be as good as our own children. But here Dhritarashtra, he is differentiating between his own children and the sons of his brother. So it reveals the mind of Dhritarashtra that he does not consider the Pandavas' children to be like his own. So that's why he's saying, Mamaka Pandavas Chaiva. What did my son do and what did the sons of Pandu do? And he's worried about the influence of Dharmakshetra in the war. He's worried about the influence of Kurukshetra being a holy place on the outcome of the war. Now, what is Dhritarashtra's concern? Usually, when you go to a holy place, it has a particular effect on our consciousness. No, it helps us come to a different consciousness. It kind of purifies us when we go to a holy place. So he is worried that this place, Kurukshetra, may have an effect on my own children, and maybe they will develop detachment, and maybe they will not desire to fight anymore, and that he does not want. And also he is hoping that maybe the Pandavas will feel detached by coming to Dharmakshetra, Kurukshetra, and they probably will not have the desire to fight anymore, and they will say, okay, we are ready to renounce the kingdom. So he is hoping against hope that this will happen, and that's why he is referring to Kurukshetra as Dharmakshetra. Also, he is worried that the Kurukshetra, the holy place, may favor the Pandavas more than it will favor his own sons. Why? Because it's a holy place and the Pandavas are righteous. So a holy place will favor the righteous people more than it will favor the sinful people. Okay, so these are the points that we learn from the first verse. Can you identify the personalities on the screen?
Dhritarashtra, Sanjaya, and Guru Vyasa.
Yes, Dhritarashtra, Sanjaya, and Vyasa. So as we discussed previously, how Vyasadeva gave the divine vision to Sanjaya after Dhritarashtra refused to accept it. So this scene is before the war started. Okay. Let's read the points from the purport here.
Okay. Dhritarashtra inquiry reveals Dhritarashtra's doubtful and fearful mind, partial to his own sons. Dhritarashtra refers to only his sons as Kurus. It shows his specific position in relation to his nephews, the Pandavas. Uses the specific words Dharmashetra and Kurukshetra. Their importance is as follows. Kurukshetra is a sacred place of pilgrimage from immemorial time of the Vedic age. Kurukshetra is a holy place and a place of worship even for the heavenly denizens. Supreme Personality of Godhead is personally present on the Pandavas' side. Pandavas are virtuous, therefore the holy place may influence them. Dhritarashtra is fearful about the holy influences on the fate of the battle because it may influence his own sons to compromise, or he hoped that under the holy influence, the Pandavas may renounce their claim to avoid bloodshed. Analogy. Paddy field kshetra. Kshetra is also termed as paddy field. Unnecessary weeds taken out. Similarly, in religious field or of Kurukshetra, in the presence of the father of the religion, Sri Krishna, unwanted plants like Dhritarashtra and his son Duryodhana and others would be wiped out.
Okay, so we've discussed everything here except for the last point. So the last point here is Just as how from a paddy field, unnecessary weeds, when they grow, the farmer takes them out because we don't want those unnecessary weeds on the field, isn't it? So in the same way, the father of religion, Krishna, is going to remove the unwanted weeds in the form of those sinful kings of the Kauravas and all those who are supporting the Kauravas. He is going to remove all of them from the planet, which means that they are going to be wiped out. They are going to meet their death. So this is an analogy. Okay, second verse.
Vacha.
Vaka.
Drishtva.
So
Two.
Pandavanikam
Pandavanikam.
Vyudam
Yudam.
Duryodhana
Duryodhana.
Tada.
Acharyam
Acharyam.
Upasangamya
Upasangamya.
Akaryam Raja Sangamya Raja Vachanam
Abravit.
Abravit.
Okay, so just to give you some information, in Sanskrit, the word CA is always pronounced as cha. It's not ka or sa, it is CA is always cha. So it's Sanjay Uvacha. And when there is a line on top of any alphabet, then we pronounce it as double. So for example, the last word, Panda Vanikam. So it's P-A is Panda, not Panda, because A has a line on top. So we pronounce it as double A, Panda Vanikam, like that. Or the last line in the third, the last word in the third line is Tada. So it's not Tada, it is Tada, because there is a line on top. So a line on top means we pronounce it double, and CA is always pronounced as Sha. Okay. So we will not read the synonyms. Anjali, we'll directly read only the translation.
The translation. Perfect. Translation. Sanjaya said, O king, after looking over the army arranged in military formation by the sons of Pandu, King Duryodhana went to his teacher and spoke the following words.
So who is the speaker of this verse now?
Sanjaya.
Yes, because it says Sanjay Uvacha, we understand that Sanjay is the speaker of this verse. So Sanjay is narrating to Dhritarashtra that now Duryodhan has gone to his teacher and he has spoken the following words. So who is the teacher of Duryodhan? Whom has he gone to?
Dronacharya.
Dronacharya, yes, exactly. Dronacharya was the one who taught Duryodhan the martial, the art of fighting. So he has gone to his teacher Duryodhan. I'm Dronacharya, and he has spoken these words. 1.3. Devina?
Parshyotam.
Panduputranam
Panduputranam.
Acharya
Acharya.
Mahatim
Mahatim.
Tamu
Chamu.
Yudam
Yudham.
Drupadaputrena
Drupadaputrena.
Tava
Tava.
Sasyena
Sisyena.
Dhimata.
Dhimata.
Translations. O my teacher, behold the great army of the sons of Pandu, so expertly arranged by your intelligent discipline, the son of Drupada.
So he has gone to his teacher and he's telling him that look at this great army which has been arranged by your own disciple, the son of Drupada. So who is this person? Who is a disciple? Who?
Drishtadyum.
Yes, Drishtadyum, because Drishtadyum was a disciple of Dronacharya and he was a son of Drupada. Actually here, Duryodhan is taunting his teacher because he's like saying, look, this has been arranged by your intelligent disciple. So why is he taunting him? There is a history that has taken place between Dronacharya and Drupada. What is that history? Anybody knows?
Yeah. Actually,
recite?
Dronacharya and Drupada's father were students from the same Gurukul, and they were intimate friends. But later on, when they finished education, one became, obviously because he was the king, he became the king, and Dronacharya went to him asking for one cow so that he could feed his son milk. But Drupada refuses to honor the friendship, and he insults him and sends him back. But Dronacharya later on avenges his insult in the form. Actually, Pandavas helped him avenge his insult later on. So that is how the story goes.
Okay, so how did they avenge that insult?
As a Guru Dakshina for his teachings, he asked both the Kauravas and the Pandavas to win over Drupada. The Kauravas were unsuccessful, whereas the Pandavas were able to capture him and take over his kingdom and gave it to Dronacharya.
Okay, and then what did Drupad do?
Okay, so Drupad, in order to, but Dronacharya, what he did, he returns his kingdom in half and divides his kingdom exactly in half and takes one cow additional so that he becomes superior to Drupada. So Drupada, in order to avenge his insult, he does penance, he does yagyas, and that is how he receives his two children, his son, I'm not remembering his son's name, and Panchali. So both took birth just to avenge his insult.
Yes, exactly. Drupad did a yagya, and that yagya was done especially to have a son who can kill Dronacharya. Right. So after, what was his name? What was the name of Drupad's son who came from the Yagya Kund? Drishtadyum, isn't it? So after Drishtadyum came from that Yagya Kund, then who appeared? Draupadi, yes. Draupadi appeared from that Yagya Kund. So Dronacharya very well knew that Drishtadyum was born only to kill me. Exclusively his birth has taken place for him to kill me. Still, when he approached him to give him knowledge, he did not refuse to accept him as his disciple. So he only taught him the military science. He only taught him how to use a weapon. He disclosed all military secrets to Drishtadyum, knowing fully well that he is going to kill me in the future. So that shows the greatness of Dronacharya. And here now, that's why Duryodhan is taunting his teacher that, look, you only taught him. You know, he's trying to tell him that you're so foolish, you only taught him. Like that, he's taunting him and he's saying that, look, your disciple only has arranged this military formation. So why this Drishtadyum has arranged the military on the other side? What is Drishtadyum doing in the war? What role does he play?
He is the chief. He's basically the military commander of the Pandavas.
Exactly. He's the commander-in-chief of the Pandava army. Who was the commander-in-chief of the Kaurava army at the start of the war?
Bhishma.
Bhishma, yes, exactly. Krishna Kumar, you know all the answers, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. So here is a list of those who served as the commanders-in-chief of the Kaurava army. There were 5 of them. And it was an 18-day war. So Bhishma, he fell on the 10th day. After that, Dronacharya was the commander-in-chief. And after Dronacharya died, It was Karna for a couple of days, and then the last day was Shalva, and the last night was Ashwadhama. Okay. So here is a pictorial representation of how Dronacharya was insulted by Drupada. Then Drupada was captured by the Pandavas. And then this yagya was done by Drupada from where Drishtadyumna appeared. And then finally, even Draupadi appeared from the same yagya. So Draupadi and Drishtadyumna are two personalities who never had any childhood because they appeared as a full-grown youthful personalities from the yagya. Okay, let's do 1.4.
Atra,
Atra,
Atra
Sura,
Sura,
Maheshwara,
Maheshwara
Atra,
Bhimarjuna,
Bhimarjuna
Sama, Yudhi,
Yudhi
Yuyudhano,
Yudhano
Yudhano,
Virata,
Viratascha
Viratascha,
Drupadacha
Drupadascha,
Maharataha.
Maharatha.
Okay, so now here Duryodhan, he is describing what the great personalities on the opposite side. So he's mentioning Bhima and Arjuna, and then he's mentioning other fighters like Yuyudhana, Virata, and Drupada. So why he mentions Bhima and Arjuna in particular is because he knows that they are great stumbling blocks for him to win the war. And then even these great other fighters, he mentions Yuyudhana, Virata, and Drupada. And he says that all these are Maharathaha. Maharathaha or Maharathis are people, are warriors who can fight with 720,000 warriors at one time. Single-handedly, they can fight 720,000 warriors. So they are called as Maharathis. So Duryodhana is saying that these are all Maharathis who are there on the opposite side. 1.5. Devina.
Ketu,
Ketush
Shekitanaha,
Sechitanaha
Kashirat, Jas,
Kashyapascha,
Cha, Viryavan,
Viryavan,
Puruji,
Purujit,
Kunti Bojas,
Kunti Bhojas,
Cha, Saibya,
Shaibya,
Cha,
Cha,
Narapungavaha.
Narapandava
Pungava.
Translation.
sorry, they're so great, heroic, powerful fighters like Drustaketu, Bhoja, and Saibhaya.
Okay. So now he continues to mention the warriors on the
I'm
side.
sorry, I'm having a little internet issues. That's why again it's gone. This is speaker, yeah.
Yeah, your voice is kind of breaking. Okay, anyway, so here he continues to mention the warriors on the other side, on the side of the Pandavas. Let's do 1.6.
Yudhamanyus,
Yudhamanayus
Cha,
Vikranta,
Vikranta
Uttama,
Chamojascha,
Viryavan,
Viryavan,
Saubhadra
Saubhadru,
Draupadayas, Cha,
Draupadeyascha
Sarva
Sharva
Sarva
Eva
Eva
Maharatha.
Maharatha.
Translation?
There are the mighty Yuddhamanyu, the very powerful Uttamaujya, the son of Subhadra, and the sons of Draupadi. All these warriors are great chariot fighters.
So again, he is mentioning the great warriors on the other side, or the great Maharathis on the other side. Let's do 1.7.
Ashmakam
Makam,
Ashmakam
Tu Visista
Tu
Tu
Visishta,
Vishishta
Ye
Ye
Tan
Tannibhuta
Tan,
Tannibodha
Niboda
Niboda,
Dvijotama
Vijotama,
Vijotama,
Nayaka
Samasta Sainyasya
Mama
Mama
Sai,
Sainashya Shangnatha
Samnyartham,
Samyartham
Samnyatham Tambrivivi
Tan,
Bravimite.
Anjali, do you want me to
I don't mind. I'm
the
having a little issues
translation?
with my internet, you know, it's
Okay,
collapsing somehow
Yeah.
today.
yeah,
Thank
okay, I'll take a translation.
Okay.
But for your information, O best of the Brahmanas, let me tell you about the captains who are especially qualified to lead my military force.
So now Duryodhana is going to shift his focus from the warriors on the opposite side to the warriors on his own side. Let's see.
Bhavan
Bhavan,
Bhishmascha
Bhishmascha,
Karnastha
Karnascha,
Narsuta,
Kripastha
Kripascha,
Samitim Jayaha
Samitin Jaya,
Jayaha
Ashwadama
Ashwatthama
Vikarnastha
Vikarnascha
Saumadatis
Saumadatis
Satvastha
Tataiva
Translation. There are personalities like you, Bhishma, Karna, Kripa, Ashwathama, Vikarna, and the son of Somadatta called Bhuri Srava, who are always victorious in the battle.
So now when he's mentioning the personalities on his own side, he says there are personalities like you. So who's that you here?
Dronacharya.
Dronacharya, yes. So first he's telling Dronacharya, then he's mentioning the name of Bhishma. If you go to see by seniority, who should be placed first, Bhishma or Drona?
Bhishma.
Bhishma should be placed first, isn't it? Obviously, because he's the elder and he's a grandfather. But now Duryodhana is a great politician and he's very, very diplomatic. And he sees that, okay, this great personality, my guru, this great Dronacharya is in front of me. And he wants to please him because he's right in front of him. And so he's pleasing him even before Bhishma. So this shows how diplomatic Duryodhana is. And he also knows that Bhishma will not take offense. He will not mind me mentioning Dronacharya first. Why? Because Bhishma is one of the 12 Mahajans, one of the 12 great authorities on the science of God. So that's why he first mentions Dronacharya and then he mentions Bhishma. Okay, now amongst these personalities, who was Vikarna? What is the special credit that Vikarna has? Anybody knows? Krishna Kumar.
No.
Okay, Vikarna was the only one who opposed the disrobing of Draupadi. When Draupadi was being insulted after the gambling match and they tried to disrobe her, Vikarna was the only one who spoke, and he told Duryodhana that what you are doing is wrong. He was the only one who had the courage to speak. Nobody else spoke at that time. So that is what marks Vikarna apart from the others. So Vikarna was one righteous brother of Duryodhana. Duryodhana had one more righteous brother. Who was he?
I'm not sure. I think before the war begins, they invite all the basically fighters to say if they want to switch sides, they can actually do. And I think one of the brothers went to the Pandava side, and
Yes,
not sure about
exactly. Yes, yes. He was the other brother of Duryodhana who was righteous. Anybody remembers his name? His name was Yuyutsu. His name was Yuyutsu. Actually, he was not the son of Gandhari. He was born to Dhritarashtra from a maid servant. Okay, when Gandhari was pregnant, she had a long gestation period. She had a 2-year-old long gestation period, and meanwhile, Dhritarashtra had a son from a maid servant, and he was Yuyutsu. So this Yuyutsu was the one who switched sides just before the war. And Vikarna also was righteous, but he chose to fight in favor of his brother. Let's read the text.
two righteous Kaurava brothers. Vikarna. Vikarna was the only Kaurava who questioned the humiliation of Draupadi. However, during the battle, he stayed loyal to the family and perished in the war. Yuyutsu. Yuyutsu was Duryodhana's half-brother who forewent his family bonds in order to side with Dharma. Vikarna and Yuyutsu are compared to Kumbhakarna and Vibhishna from the Ramayana. Both Vikarna and Kumbhakarna acknowledge that their elder brother's actions are against Dharma, but ultimately they remain loyal to Duryodhana and Ravana respectively. Yuyutsu had the same ideology and mindset as that of Vikarna. Yuyutsu also felt that Duryodhana's actions are wrong. Unlike Vikarna's, he switched sides at the onset of Kurukshetra war and fought on the side of Pandavas. Yuyutsu's equivalent in the Ramayana is Vibhishana.
Okay, so these two brothers from the Mahabharata are compared to the other two brothers from the Ramayana. The other two righteous brothers of Ravan were Kumbhakaran and Vibhishan, right? Kumbhakaran was righteous and he told Ravan that what you are doing is wrong. But still, when it came to the war scenario, he chose to still fight for his brother. But Vibhishan, the other righteous brother of Ravan, he decided to switch sides. So Vibhishan went and he fought with Ram. So these two brothers from the Mahabharata are compared to the other two righteous brothers from the Ramayana. This is just to draw a parallel or comparison. Okay. So we discussed that how Bhishma is one of the 12 Mahajans. He is one of the 12 greatest authorities on the science of God. And here is a picture of the 12 Mahajans. Can we identify them? Let's start from the left top. Who is that first person?
Brahma.
Lord Brahma. After Brahma, we have
Lord Shiva.
Lord Shiva.
Lord Shiva. After that,
Vyasdev.
not Vyasadeva.
Vyasdev's son.
Sukadeva Goswami. Yes.
Sukadeva Goswami.
After that,
Buddha.
Prahlad Maharaj.
Lord Buddha.
no, that's Prahalad. That's Prahalad.
Prahalad.
After Prahalad,
Narad
Narada
Muni.
Muni.
Narada
Narad
Muni. After him,
Maharaj Parishit, I think.
no,
That's
No.
Maharaj Bali.
no. Maharaj
Bali
Parikshit was
Maharaj.
not one of the 12 Mahajans.
Mahabali.
Bali Maharaj.
No. Bali Maharaj is one of the 12 Mahajans, but the person in the picture is not Bali Maharaj. He is the father of
Maharaj Janak.
Maharaj
Maharaj
Janak.
Janak.
Yes, Maharaj Janak. Then below
The four Kumaras.
the 4 Kumaras. Then Who is that
Gautam
sage?
Buddha.
No. That's Kapila Muni. Okay.
Hmm.
Kapila Dev. Then after that,
Bhishma Pitamaha.
no,
No.
before
That's the next
Bhishma.
one.
Pitama. Before Bhishma, after Kapila Muni, who is that personality?
Bhargava.
The word man or Manushya comes from him.
Manu.
Manu.
Manu, yes, Manu, yes, Manu. So
Manu.
the word man, Manusha comes from Manu. After that we have
Bhishma Pitama.
Bhishma.
Bhishma. After that,
Yamaraj.
Mahabali.
No.
Bali
Mahabali.
Maharaj, yes. After
Bali
Bali
Maharaj.
Maharaj, then we have
Maharaj.
Yamaraj. So even Yamaraj is an authority on the science of God. That's why we cannot argue that this is right and that is wrong. He's the authority on the science of God. So this information we get from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Last time we spoke up a little bit about Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is there in Canto 6, chapter 3, verse number 20. Let's read.
Lord Brahma, Bhagwan Narada, Lord Shiva, the four Kumaras, Lord Kapila, the son of Devahuti, Swayambhuva Manu, Prahalada Maharaj, Janaka Maharaj, grandfather Bhishma, Bali Maharaj, Sukadeva Goswami, and I myself know the real religious principles.
So who is this I in the end? Who is the speaker of the verse? Who is this I referring to?
Brahma.
Sri Krishna.
No,
Bali Maharaj.
no,
Arjuna.
Sukadeva Goswami.
Yamaraj.
no. Yamaraj. Yes, very good. It refers to
Yamaraj.
Yamaraj. Because see, you have to see that all the 11 names are there of the Mahajans, but only Yamaraj's name is missing.
Yamaraj.
Why? Because Yamaraj is saying all these people and I myself know the real religious principles. So it is Yamaraj who has given us the names of the 12 Mahajans. Okay. Let's go to 1.9. Divina.
Anita.
Necha,
Anecha.
Bahavaha Sura.
Bahava,
Mahavara.
Sura.
Mad Arte.
Madarte. Madarte.
Yaksha Jivitaha.
Jivita.
Nana Shastra.
Nana Shastra.
Praharanaha.
Prahāranaha.
Sarve. Yuddha Visharadaha.
Translation. There are many other heroes who are prepared to lay down their lives for my sake. All of them are well equipped with different kinds of weapons, and all are experienced in military science.
So then after mentioning those names in the previous verse, and then he's saying apart from them also there are many others who are well equipped and they can even lay down their lives for my sake, he says, Duryodhana says. So that is what eventually happened, isn't it? All of them perished in the war. Only 3 people survived the war from Duryodhana's side. Who were the 3 survivors from the Kaurava side?
Rama.
Abhimanyu, no.
Prathama.
Ashwadhama, yes.
Kripacharya.
Kripacharya?
Dronacharya.
No, Dronacharya died. Ashwadhama, Kripacharya, and one more name.
Bhishma Pitamaha.
No, Bhishma
No.
also perished.
What was the second one?
Kripacharya. The third name is Kritavarma. Okay, Kritavarma, Ashwadhama, and Kripacharya were the 3 survivors on the side of the Kauravas. Who survived from the Pandava side? How many survivors were there?
The 5 Pandavas.
Pandus.
Yes, exactly. Only the 5 Pandavas survived. Everybody else lost their lives. Even the 5 sons of the 5 Pandavas, they also lost their lives. Okay. 1.10.
Aparyatam.
Aparyatam.
Paryaptam.
Yaptam,
Tad Asmakam.
Tadasmakam.
Balam.
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 Bhishma Virakshitam.
Bhishma
Virakshitam.
Paryatam Tva.
Paryatam
Paryaptam cha. Swami.
Etesham.
Idam Ishtam
Ishtam.
Balam.
Balam
Bhima Virakshitam.
Bhima
Bhima
Virakshitam.
Virakshitam.
Translation. Our strength is immeasurable and we are perfectly protected by grandfather Bhishma, whereas the strength of Pandavas, carefully protected by Bhima, is limited.
So 2 points to note here. First of all, he's saying that our strength is immeasurable. Our strength, he says, is aparyaptam. It is immeasurable. You cannot measure our strength. So he's very proud of the army that Duryodhan has. And it's true also because the Pandavas' army was much smaller compared to the size of the army of the Kauravas. So that's why he's saying that our strength is aparyaptam. It is immeasurable. And secondly, here on one side, he is comparing Bhishma. He's mentioning Bhishma on his side, and on the opposite side, he is mentioning Bhim. So actually, Bhim is very small compared to the strength of Bhishma, isn't it? And Bhim is not, he is not the king. He's not the commander in chief. So why is he mentioning Bhim over here? Can anybody say?
Because Bhim has only 10,000 elephants strength.
He has a
Yeah.
strength of 1,000 elephants. Okay. Any other answers?
Because I think he had taken that vow to kill Duryodhan when Draupadi was dethroned.
Yes, exactly. He had taken 3 vows. In fact, he had taken 3 vows. One of the vows was to kill all those brothers, all the Kaurava brothers who were part of this. And what were his other 2 vows?
One was to break the leg of Duryodhana.
Exactly.
Another was to drink the blood of Dushasana's heart.
Yeah, and then
Yes, yes. Let's read.
He will forcefully tear open the breast of Dushasana and drink his blood. He will break Duryodhana's thigh in battle. He will slay Dhritarashtra's son.
So these are the 3 vows that Bhim had taken, and that's the reason why Duryodhan was specifically scared of Bhim. He was more concerned about Bhim more than he was concerned about Arjun or Krishna. I was hearing in a Bhakti Shastri class, the speaker said that it is after this incident that Draupadi washed her hair with the blood of Dushasan that this trend has started where married women, they color their foreheads with the red sindoor. So this putting the red sindoor on the forehead has started from this tradition when Draupadi, she washed her hair with the blood of Dushasan. This is where it has started from. Okay. And here is a summary of the size of the army of the Pandavas and the size of the army of the Kauravas. So the army size was previously measured by Akshohinis. One Akshohini, you can see there, it has 21,870 chariots, 21,870 elephants, 65,610 horses, and 1,09,350 foot soldiers. So this is the size of one Akshohini. And the Pandavas' army size was 7 Akshohinis, while the Kauravas' army size was 11 Akshohinis. So much, much larger compared to that of the Pandavas. And the description given is that as far as a human being could see, he could see the soldiers. And there were soldiers even beyond his vision. So such was the size of the armies on the 2 sides. Okay. 1.11.
Ayanesu
Ayaneshu
Sarveshu.
Sarveshu
Yata Bhagam.
Yata
Bhagam
Avastitah
Bhishmam Eva Virakshantu.
Bhishma
Bhavantaha Sarva.
Bhavantah
Sarva
Eva hi.
Eva hi.
Eva hi.
Translation. All of you must now give full support to Grandfather Bhishma as you stand at your respective strategic points of entrance into the phalanx of the army.
So now Duryodhan, he's addressing other people on the battlefield, and he's saying that all of you must give support to Grandfather Bhishma. So there are two reasons. One is he wants to make everybody feel important, and the second reason is he knows that Bhishma is very important for him in the war, and he's thinking that Bhishma is he's very old, so he needs to be protected. So these are the two reasons why he's saying that everybody must give full support to Bhishma, and you have to protect him. So Duryodhan is actually very confident of his victory. He's very confident because one, he is proud that Bhishma is on his side. He's very happy that Bhishma is on his side. Two, he thinks that his army, the size of his army is much bigger. And three, he mentioned all these people, and he says that all these warriors will be ready to even lay their lives down for me. So you can see how Duryodhan is very confident of winning the. So with this, we come to the end of section 1. We will do section 2, signs of victory, in the next class. And we'll take questions if there are any questions. Any questions?
Can we maybe later see a tree, because all the names were confusing?
Yeah, these names will not appear again in the Gita. So they are not so important. They are not going to appear again. And the Bhagavad Gita is more philosophy than history.
Okay.
So we focus on the philosophy. These names is just the beginning. They are not going to appear again anymore. So we don't have to worry about them. You just remember that, yeah, there are warriors on this side and there are warriors on the other side. That's it.
Would we be also looking at any Srimad Bhagavatam's stories while we are reviewing the verses here?
Yes. As we go deeper into the philosophy in the Bhagavad Gita, then we will quote some verses, and we will also see some histories from the Bhagavatam.
Thank you.
Yes. As we progress in the Gita, the philosophy gets deeper and deeper, and then we say that, okay, say even the Bhagavatam says this, or this story from the Bhagavatam, from this story of the Bhagavatam, we learn this particular point in the Gita, because Gita is philosophy. So sometimes we bring in stories to prove that, yes, this point is proven by this history from the Bhagavatam. We don't say stories because they're not stories. They are his stories, histories. So yes, we will see some. What else?
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandvat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev Ki Jai. This is Mother Vrinda Gopika Mataji. Thank you very much for such a nectarian class, Mataji, and the stories and explanation. If you give next time one chance, I will be reading the Sanskrit sloka.
Okay, sure, Mataji. Next class, Krishna willing, you can help us with the.
It is Saturday, no? Tomorrow,
Yes.
no?
No.
What
Next
time?
Saturday.
Okay, Mataji. Thank you, Mataji. Anant Koti
Thank you.
Dandvat Pranam. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
So Vrinda Gopika Mataji, she's a very advanced devotee. She's been practicing Krishna consciousness for the past 30 years.
Wow.
Yes, she's a very, very advanced devotee, and she has joined us today. She's very humble. That's I don't know.
No,
I'm not
Mataji, we all are learner Vaishnava. We all are learner Vaishnava. We cannot take your faith, your post, Mataji. All are learner Vaishnava. By the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and Srila Gurudev, we are qualified little ant legs to something to like Prabhupada mercy. They are dancing in our tongue, and that's why we are able to speak little bit, Mataji. That much only qualification.
Yes. Thank you, Mataji. Yes. Oh, it's all only because of Srila Prabhupada. Okay. Anything else?
Yes, Hare Krishna Mataji. I had a question. Like you mentioned about the 12 Mahajans, right? Like what is the importance of all of them? Like, is it something like what they speak, or is it like specifically to their qualities which makes them, the 12 Mahajans?
No, 12 Mahajans, they are the authorities on the science of God. So they know the philosophy better than anybody else. authorities on the science of God. Of course,
Yeah.
there are other many pure devotees other than the 12, but it's more to do with the authorities on the science of God. For example, Bhishma Dev, when he was lying on the bed of arrows, there was a conversation that happened between Yudhishthir and Bhishma Dev, right? And that time, Bhishma Dev spoke on the Varnashram system to Yudhishthir. And Lord Krishna, he is the father of religion. He is the one who has spoken all the Vedas. And Krishna himself told Yudhishthir that you please learn it from Bhishma Dev because no one knows it better than him. So they are the authorities on the science. They know the philosophy the best. That's what they are.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Also, of course, they are pure devotees. That goes without saying.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Mataji, I did have a question. So I was surprised to see Maharaj Janak's name there. Because, you know, I don't know, like, you know, the perception that at least I had was that, like, you know, he had 3 wives. He was indulged in all karmic stuff, right? Like everybody else in the world. But, like, you know, only good thing was that Sri Ram, Prabhu Sri Ram, and the 4 virtuous sons that he had. Other than that, like, I didn't know that he was like a great king, or, you know, other than being born in Surya Vamsha. Can you give a little background on that, please?
Yeah, actually, just because he's a king, it doesn't mean that he is engaged in only materialistic activities. One can be a king, and at the same time, he can also be a great devotee. That's what the Varnashram system is all about. Varnashram means 4 Varnas and 4 Ashramas. So what are the 4 Varnas? Varnas are the division of the society based on work. So the 4 Varnas are Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. These are the 4 Varnas. And as we see, Krishna emphasizes that each Varna, each one should do their duty. So if you are a Brahman, then you do your Brahmanical duties to perfection. If you're a Kshatriya, you do your Kshatriya duties to perfection. So Janak, he was a Kshatriya. So he did his Kshatriya duties to perfection. But that doesn't mean that he is not a devotee. You can be a devotee and at the same time do your Kshatriya duties. Like Arjuna, he is a devotee. He's a pure devotee. That's why Krishna chose him to speak the Bhagavad Gita. But then Arjuna, again, he's a Kshatriya. He is also killing on the battlefield. So one may say that, oh, he has killed his guru. So, or he has, he's fighting against his own grandfather, his own brother, his own ancestor. So that is so sinful. But because Arjuna is a devotee and whatever he is doing under the instruction of the Lord. He is a Kshatriya, but at the same time, he is a devotee. So in the same way, even Janak Maharaj, he was also a great devotee. Although he was a Kshatriya, he was also a great devotee. And just because he had 3 wives, it doesn't mean that he is sinful, because in the previous ages, the Kshatriyas were allowed to accept more than 1 wife. So it was within the jurisdiction of the Shastra. But of course, in Kali Yuga, it is prohibited. A lot of things were allowed in the previous yugas, but are not allowed in Kali Yuga. Just like how I live in Chile, somebody lives in India. One who lives in India has to follow the rules of India. Somebody who's living in Chile has to follow the rules of Chile. So if we are in Kali Yuga, we have to follow the rules of this age. And a person in the previous age, if he marries more than once, but it is allowed shastrically, then it's not sinful. He's not performing an immoral act. Okay. Is that okay, Divya?
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I don't know if you heard me.
No,
Thank
I
you.
didn't hear you before. Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? So any feedback with regard to these classes? Is it going okay? Do you like to change anything?
No, it's amazing.
No,
I think
it's
we're
good.
getting a
Thank
lot
you.
of information and a lot of interestingly done. Like, you know, I really enjoy these classes and look forward to the future ones as well.
Okay, thank you. So if there is anything that you don't like or you would like to give your feedback, we are always open to receiving feedback. So please do not hesitate and let us know. If there's something that you don't like, please let us know.
Mataji,
I just have a small query. I'm not sure
Yes.
if it is relevant, but in the initial when we declared how many slokas are there in the Bhagavad Gita, we said there are only 4 speakers, but namely Dhritarashtra, Sanjaya, Krishna, and Arjuna. But in the first chapter itself, we hear Duryodhana speaking.
Ah,
So is it-
yeah. So the thing is, Sanjaya is narrating this to Dhritarashtra. Sanjay, if you read the second verse, it says Sanjaya Uvacha, and then Sanjaya is telling Dhritarashtra that Duryodhan went to his guru, and Duryodhan said this to his guru. So the speaker is Sanjaya. He is narrating what Duryodhan has spoken. So the narrator is Sanjaya of the story. It's not, you'll never see Duryodhan Uvacha. Sanjaya Uvacha, Sanjaya is telling Dhritarashtra that Duryodhan went, Duryodhan spoke, like that. Okay.
Mataji, just one shout out to the young kids here. Very happy to see them online. I think Devina and Herman, seeing them, engaged, very happy as a mother.
Yes. Harman and Devina, they've been my students since 2013, actually. They've been coming to me week after week. Of course, Devina is my daughter, but Harman has been coming to me since 2013. So they are very, they are more advanced. Than I read the Gita when I was 28 years old, but these people have read since they were 4, 5, 6, I think.
Wow, amazing.
Yes.
Any ideas to get kids interested? My own kids interested.
How old are your kids?
Mine are 8 and 12.
Why don't they join us, our sessions?
I did try. I can try again.
Okay.
We can ask Harman and Devina what interests them.
What interested y'all? Y'all want to say? I guess they didn't have a choice. They were so young that they were just sent for these classes and they had to just take it up. Right?
Mhm.
Yeah, you were young, so I don't remember.
Yeah, she doesn't even remember when she started. So what I would say, Divya, is you can tell them to sit through at least one class and give it a try. And if they don't like it, then they can back out. So let them at least try.
Okay. I'll give it a shot. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. Where is the other? She didn't join today?
Yeah, he's been going through some production issues and I've not been able to speak with him for like past 2 weeks, literally.
Okay, because usually when he cannot make it for a class, he informs me, and this time he has not even said anything. So he must be really busy.
Yeah, no, he's been ignored. Well, I can't say ignoring, but he's just caught up with that production issues, I guess.
Okay, there is a request from someone to change the class timing to 1 hour before. And we are still thinking about it. But before that, I would like to ask all of you, is it okay if we shift the class timing from 5:30 to 4:30 Chile time? 1 hour before. Does it complicate y'all? Or should we
for
just
me, it's
stick it
okay.
to 5:30?
For me, it's okay, no problems.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
I'm fine
What about
with
the
it.
others?
I have other class going on at 4, so.
Devina, you have another class at 4. Yes. Okay. Okay. Anything else?
Thank you very much.
Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
then. I hope to see you
Hare
next
Krishna.
Saturday. Thank you all very much. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.